So, John, why are we here? What are we going to be talking about?
It's a great question because up until a few months ago we didn't even know each other.
That's very true, yeah.
So I guess the reason that we're together is because of suicide.
Yes.
But suicide from, I guess, different viewpoints?
Yeah, the two different sides of suicide, I'd say.
Sure.
Yeah.
The survivor and the one who didn't quite make it. Yeah.
So, I struggled with suicide all through university, which is partly why we're shooting here at the University of Glasgow. And I was lucky enough to survive my battle with suicide, which I'm thankful for every day. But not everyone is so lucky. And
So the first thing I'd want to say about that is that I am utterly delighted that you're here and that you survived your suicide crisis. It's so important that I say that.
Thanks, John. Thanks a lot.
And that's despite the fact that as a family we didn't survive Cameron, our son's suicidal crisis. And Cameron, as you know, was 24 years old and a young veterinary surgeon who decided on the 20th of October 2019 that this world was not a place he wanted to be in. He wasn't at university, he had graduated the year previously and ostensibly was doing his dream job. He was in large animal practice, doing the thing that he'd always wanted to do. There was no obvious history of psychiatric distress. He enjoyed his love of the great outdoors, climbing mountains and kayaking, cycling, and we are completely at a loss to understand why he took his life.
And having done my show, The Suicide Notes, at the Fringe, last Fringe, so many people that I've had the fantastic opportunity to talk to who have gone through suicide or have a relative or a friend who have gone through it.
Yeah.
The thing that they're left with are these questions, this mystery of someone they love or a friend or anybody they've known that seemed happy and in a good life.
Yeah.
Does that? And after you.
And that is the tragedy of it. So one day it appears that things are going well, life is being lived well, and then there are two police officers knocking at your door and asking you if you are the father and next of kin of Cameron Gibson, and yes, I am. Well, sir, Cameron is dead, and it appears that he has taken his life.
What do you do in that moment, that first moment? Oh,
what a great question. What do you do? Well, I think you go into total autopilot. It's saying no, it hasn't happened. So there's this initial vast objection to it having taken place. No, it can't be our Cameron. There must be another Cameron Gibson. You must be wrong. And then it's about finding the rest of the family to tell them this horrific tale, this horrific story. So, yeah.
Yeah. That as the very next step, having to tell your loved ones what's happened must be unmanageable. I find it unimaginable.
Yeah. Unimaginable, but it's suddenly a reality. It's suddenly right there. And and how you then gather together as a family is so important, because the statistics would show that if you are the first degree relative of someone who's died by suicide, you carry a 15% lifelong increased risk of dying by suicide.
Really?
Yeah. And so identifying that, talking about that, my wife and I had to identify that there was a 2/3 risk that our marriage would be over by the end of 2 years, because that's also what the statistics tell you. So it's a time for grieving, but it's also a time for fighting. It's a time for yourself having to and wanting to survive.
Right when it's going to be the hardest point in your life to find that fight.
Oh,
But,
absolutely hard.
I mean,
Yeah.
put it mildly.
I've tried to put into words the feeling and the sense of what happened at that time and how I was feeling, and I find it impossible to verbalise it.
How do you feel now? What's after having? I mean, I know the feeling will never be gone, but how is the feeling? Has the feeling changed at all?
That's a great question, and I like the question. And I think I know the answer, so I'll give you the answer that I think I now have. And that is that, yes, feelings have changed. Yep. But there's a caveat to that, and it's something I encounter all the time now in the suicide community, which is, do I actually want it to change? Okay, am I grieving Cameron? Am I disappointing him some way by feeling less pain today than I did 4 years ago? And so that's a question that always revolves around the minds and the lives of the suicide community. But the undeniable reality is that, yes, things are different. I feel differently 4 years on from the acuteness. You could not live in the acuteness. You could not live in the acuteness of that pain. So yes, the pain is still there, but it's different.
Yeah,
it's different, and there are still huge waves of grief that take me out, and often it's a photograph of Cameron, often it's a piece of music that he loved, going to a place that he liked to visit. These are the things that just tsunami me out with my grief. But whereas the grieving and the weeping and the wailing lasted for days initially, now maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 10 minutes. But the thoughts of him and what would have been are now the things that as a family we're encountering. So would he be in a relationship? Would he be married? Would he have children? He'd always thought about going to New Zealand. Would he have gone to New Zealand and spend time there? How would life have changed for him? And how would it be different for us?
And of course that must be an agony, living with those questions.
Yeah. But it's an agony that has driven us to a new place, because, as you know, we set up the Canmore Trust, which was based on an understanding that we had to do two things. One was find a safe space for people who are impacted by suicide, whether their own suicidal challenge, their own suicidal journey, or subsequently where a family or an individual or a colleague has taken their life, how might we then support them? So finding a safe space was important, but then also finding purpose. So there's a wonderful American psychologist who's a grief expert called David Kessler, and I love David Kessler. His work is amazing. And he wrote a book called Finding Meaning, the Sixth Stage of Grief. And I love his writings, and his book is amazing, but I found it deeply offensive because I could not find meaning in Cameron's death, and I cannot find meaning in Cameron's death. But in the final pages, David Kessler makes a suggestion that if you substitute the term purpose for meaning, does that make a difference? And for me, it was absolutely transformational. So I couldn't find meaning, and I cannot find meaning, and I don't think I'll ever find meaning. That he was a young man who was at the peak of life, ready to fly, and mown down. Yep. But I can find purpose, and the establishment of the Canmore Trust has been our purpose, my purpose, and helping other people through the tragedy of suicidal challenge and suicidal planning, and knowing that lives are being saved. No one was there for my son. No one was there to help him. But we can be there for others. We can be there for each other, and developing that sense of community and trying to make the world a place where people do want to stay is my challenge. It's my motivation. It's my purpose. I hope that doesn't sound too grand or grandiose.
Not at all.
But that's the purpose.
Yeah. I was just about to say, actually, in my journey with suicidal thoughts, finding my purpose, and was the kind of pull string to switch on the light.
Oh wow!
And just as it helped you, when I found my purpose of acting and writing and doing and using that to spread the message that I had learnt through suicidal tendencies and depression to help other people. It gave me that sense of purpose, which made the challenges that would come my way, or the challenges that I would see other people going through, and knowing that I could use this adverse period in my life to maybe help the next person along.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels powerful when you do it, when you use kind of yesterday's tragedy, or when you use past tragedy to help as like a balm for today's century.
I love that. That's a great picture.
Yeah. But I think it's finding those little things, those little coping strategies, or those little nuggets of gold in the mud.
And you clearly have found purpose. You clearly have taken things forward. Having heard you at the Fringe as you talked through suicide notes, it was deeply meaningful for Isabel and I to be in the audience and to hear what you were saying, and to listen to the poetry and the poetry that you've put into your book. And it's something that we open and read. And so I guess you've handed on that baton of your sense of purpose now to others.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
That was the goal. Put it down in a book, get it out there so other people don't have to.
Yeah.
All about convenience to me.
Fantastic. And the good news is that when you create a sense of hope, a sense of purpose, people do lift their heads.
They do.
Yeah.
It's funny, the vast difference in thinking, or like the view of the world, how it's changed. The world has really changed in my eyes, and I'm sure yours. But it's almost like when there's this, when you've been through something so dark, then the contrast between that and the small bits, the small patches of light in your day. I don't know if this is the case for you, but the little things become vastly brighter.
Excuse me. Huge. And for me that was, so I'd always had a love of nature and being outdoors. But when Cameron died, everything went dark. Everything went dark. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I started walking again, and I started walking for small distances and then bigger distances, and then ended up walking from Land's End to John O'Groats. And that was about generating community and hope. But when I started to walk, I refound the golden nuggets that you're talking about. I found a hen harrier. I found frog spawn in a ditch. I found scabious flower blooming in the Scottish heathland. All of that stuff became amazing. Absolutely amazing. And it was the start of this journey back, and finding, I love the concept of the nuggets of gold, because that's what it was. It was nuggets of gold that I was finding, and I would find one day, and then there wouldn't be one for a long time. But then I would find another one. It was like I was going around with a little bag to put my nuggets of gold in and hold on to them. And it was from that point that I came back from, well, my own suicidal crisis as well, because 8 months after Cameron died, I found myself in a very dark place for a multiplicity of reasons. I just wasn't getting over my grief. And it was really then that I started walking again, and these little nuggets of gold, as you described them, started appearing before me. And I guess that was my way back. And I say my way back as if I've suddenly arrived. I think the journey goes on forever.
Yes.
I think the challenges of grief go on forever. But I'm so grateful our paths have crossed, because you have deeply challenged me just to lift my head just that wee bit more by your inspirational story.
Well, it's completely mutual. I mean, that's one.
We'll be hugging soon if you're not careful.
No. Well, stop hugging. But yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you and getting to know you, because it's I mean, it's been a pleasure.
Well, I guess we're part of that community now, where we've had a life experience that means that we're kind of together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't shake that. And I think when people have been through a very similar experience, there is a mutuality, there's a fellowship, there's a friendship that is, it's unassailable. It's a very special thing. So
It is.
thank you.
Oh, thank you. Like I say, we're going to be hugging again soon. But,
How long would you like us to go on for? Because Duncan's actually shaking with the cold.
I'm shaking with the raw emotion. Yeah. That was fun.
Good man.